Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's great to see such a full room today. And welcome to this session. Feel free to come in, so I'm going to let people in even if we are talking. So, just briefly, my name is Alessandra Alonso, and I am the founder of Women in Travel. Women in Travel started as a series of events that were taking places here at Walthaven Market, but actually they've very much developed into a bigger initiative. And in January last year, I decided to launch a social enterprise. My mission is to empower women through entrepreneurship and employability in travel and tourism. So my aim is to enable more women to be economically active, and I think that travel and tourism is a wonderful channel because the industry is inherently female-friendly and growing. However, today, the subject of this first session is access to funding. And this is a subject that is dear and interesting to many people, which is why I can see so many gentlemen in the audience, and I'm delighted. So you are particularly welcome, because actually we don't want to talk to the converted, we want to talk to everybody. Now, the session today has been obviously hosted by Walthaven Market, so my first thanks goes to them for being so open and partnering with Women in Travel, and also to my other supporters, which are the Travel Tech Lab and Rooster PR. So thank you very much for your continuous and ongoing support in promoting and supporting this event. Now, we have quite a busy afternoon. Let me see if I can go back. Yeah. We have quite a busy afternoon. So we've got, for those who will stay for the entire program, there's an hour of session, then there's an hour of mentoring, and then there's networking. Everybody's welcome to stay. I don't know whether we're going to have enough tea for everybody, but we'll see about that. So I would like to call my speakers on the panel. So please do come in and sit down, and I will explain. As you will see, there is a slight change on the panel today. Initially, Laura Stembridge of Jumbo was supposed to be here, but being very much on topic, she had an investor pitch this afternoon, and it was in Cambridge. It came up last minute, great opportunity. So I said, you go and grow your company and do what you need to do. And incredibly, this lovely gentleman, Ian, who is an investor and also an advisor to Pebble Investment, who was supposed to be just doing the mentoring, stepped in. So thank you very much for doing that at the very last moment. So, how are we going to run the session now? I'm going to ask everybody to introduce themselves, and then I'm going to ask them to talk a little bit about, I guess, their view on access to funding. Now, this remains a Women in Travel session, so I may ask a little bit around, female entrepreneur and access to funding, and we obviously have two representatives here of successful established travel entrepreneurs. But very quickly, the floor will be yours. So please ask questions. There is a roving mic, I believe. And so, we tend to keep it very practical, very tips-focused. So once I've asked the question I'm very keen to ask, I will enable you to do the same. So I'm going to sit down, and thank you. Okay, so would you perhaps, Chris, like to just introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hey, guys, I'm Chris from Cedars. We're one of Europe's leading equity crowdfunding platforms. Since launching in 2012, we've had 250 million invested into over 500 startups and scale-ups on our platform. We enable startups to raise anywhere between 50,000 and 5 million. So it's a very, very broad range, and investors can invest from as little as £10 and upwards. So it is really open to the masses. It is for the crowd, and it can be a great route to funding your business.
Thank you. Sarah.
Hi, everybody. I'm Sarah Towell. I direct a small media firm called Griffin Docs Media, and we have two projects within Griffin Docs Media. There's Time Traveler Tours, which are sort of a mashup of Horrible Histories and Pokemon Go. We create interactive experiences to historic destinations. Time Traveler Tales is the offshoot of that. We repurpose the content in our tours for education and trade, but Time Traveler Tours market is obviously dedicated to travel and tourism, particularly educational travel in student and family sector. It's early days for us, so I'm here as much as you are to learn from the panel. But I'll get into my experience of crowdfunding later, so that's enough for me for now.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Marilee Carr. I'm the founder and CEO of Under the Doormat. We are a company that manages homes when people are away and rents them to business travelers and tourists. Often people ask, how are you different than Airbnb? Quite simply, we curate the whole experience. We take the risk away for both the homeowner and the guest. So for homeowners, we provide everything like insurance to the linens and towels, and take inventories before and after each stay. So we essentially do everything for the homeowner to make sure that they're going to come home to a clean home and some extra money in their bank account. And for guests, that they have the experience in the quality of home that they're expecting, with the hospitality experience that they would like to have when they visit a city like London. We have gone on our own funding journey. So I'll talk a little bit more about that later, and have successfully raised funds initially through crowdfunding round, and are currently in a sort of pre-Series A round. So that's a little bit about us, and happy to answer some questions.
Thank you. Ian.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Ian Brooks. I have invested in probably about 10 startups in the travel and leisure sector in the last 15 years. Some successful, some not so. And I'm currently involved in 4 of those businesses. I also act as an advisor to a private equity fund which invests in SME travel businesses called Pebble Travel Investors.
Thank you very much. So we have a lot of expertise on the panel, and surely lots of tips that can be shared. I wanted to ask the investors, first of all, to tell us a little bit about access to funding is daunting. It's daunting, I think, even for the experienced people. So how can you best prepare for, when you are thinking, I'm going to access funding, whether it's, angel, startup, obviously crowdfunding. What's the mindset? How do you need to think?
Yeah, so, from my perspective, you need to look at all different angles. If someone comes and chats to me and they're only looking at Cedars or only looking at crowdfunding, you probably haven't done quite enough. So, my opinion is just look at kind of small business loans. If it's a product, maybe look at Kickstarter if you're very, very early stage. And with crowdfunding and Cedars, if it's quite a public way of raising. You are hosting it on a page on a website where you're going to be giving away information about your business. So you need to be open to sharing a fair amount of information to the general public. And you also want to be able to want to get a crowd on board. Do you want a crowd of maybe 200 to 1,000 investors who on the positive side can be these massive advocates and people that can help spread the word and help with the marketing? But then some businesses, you might be real heavy B2B that doesn't really see the value in that. So think about why you're choosing a certain fundraising route, who you're doing it with, and do you actually, are you just doing it for money, or are you doing it for more than that? Because if someone just wants the money from Cedars, it's probably not the right route for you.
Okay, thank you. Ian, what's your view on this?
Yeah, I think there's actually a great scheme that the government put in place a number of years ago called SEIS, which stands for Seed Enterprise Investment Scheme, and it basically allows relatively wealthy individuals to invest in startups and to get a 50% tax reclaim on their income tax for doing so. So it's a great incentive out there. So that's a great thing. A lot of crowdfunding platforms use that and have that available. So I think one of the first things to say to you is if you're starting a business and you're looking for investment, is to make your company make sure that you set your company up so that it can be eligible for SEIS investment. So that's probably one of the most important things. I think the other thing is, you need a very good business plan. That's very important. And I think the third thing is you need to show initiative. So, if you want to prove yourself as an entrepreneur to investors, it needs to be more than just an idea. Investors want to see how you've been smart, what initiatives you have brought on board before the funding, rather than just having an idea.
Okay, thank you very much. Now let's hear it from the entrepreneurs. So how did you go about making the decision? I mean, is it something that sooner or later, I suppose, people have to do? How did you prep yourself up for it? Both of you.
Who do you want to go first?
Whoever. Doesn't matter.
Well, I can piggyback on Ian because I followed that advice before I even heard it. In that you want to go quickly to get money, right? But then you realize, well, I haven't really got anything first, and I don't know if the idea actually has legs. So we decided, rather than go out right away for, say, angel investment, we would start with a Kickstarter campaign, just basic rewards-based crowdfunding, just to see if our idea, caught the attention of the crowd. So the way we looked at it was that crowdfunding in terms of rewards-based crowdfunding isn't just about raising funds. We managed to raise our funds, which was great, but we also raised the community. We got some really good tangible validation that our idea was worth funding. And with that money, we created our proof of concept so that we had that initiative to back up our next step, which will be to utilize SEIS and go for some bigger money.
Okay.
I guess in the first days, what I actually did was to create my board. So the board of advisors were all people who had expertise in different areas. So technology, finance, marketing, legal, and actually they were my first investors. So before actually going out to a wider audience, it was actually people who already were investing their time to help build the business, who believed in it enough that they said, look, I want to really own shares in this and I want to put some of my own money in. So obviously as an entrepreneur, I put some of my own money in, they put some in, and that got us through our first year and a half to actually prove the concept, and not just to have something on paper, but to actually have a tangible business that people could then invest in. So then we made the decision to go with crowdfunding. And actually, I echo a little bit what Chris says. It wasn't just for the money. We went for crowdfunding because we're a consumer business. And actually, we've got two sets of customers, our homeowners and our guests. And our homeowners are all London-based. And actually, the investor community is exactly our target audience. People who travel often, who are well off, and who value the service that we offer. So for us, doing a crowdfunding campaign was as much about communicating about our product as it was about the investment that we brought on board. We set our target for £175,000. And I think the first thing that I would say about any crowdfunding campaign is it is a project. It is not just something you do on the side. And, you've got to always be careful because it's a full-time job. And if you're also trying to build and grow a business, that's a full-time job. So all of a sudden, you've got 2 full-time jobs on your hands. Now, I was fortunate that I already had a very small team. So that meant that I could divert some of my attention and trust them to run some of the day-to-day. But they were still relatively junior. So it really meant that for the sort of 5 months, and keep in mind I say 5, that was really my number one focus. I think what's also interesting about it is that, it isn't just like you go live on Seedrs and people invest in your business. Completely the opposite. Actually, you've got to, different people will tell you different things, but we went live with 58% of our target already committed. So we already had investors who'd committed through our network before we ever went live on Seedrs. And I think the minimum I would ever recommend is having 40% pre-committed. So if you, through your own network and the network of people involved in the business, can't get enough people excited to get to 40% of your target, don't expect strangers to get excited about it. I think that's probably the number one thing. The campaign on Seedrs ran for 2 months. It's a bunch of highs and lows throughout it because, you go live, there's a burst at the beginning and there's bursts throughout. And a lot of investors wait till the very end. And only once you're in overfunding, it's kind of crowd mentality at the end. People want to invest in something successful and they want everyone else to tell them that it's going to be successful. No one wants to go first. So, the key for you is getting people who already know you and who know what you're capable of and who've seen a little bit what you're delivering to actually believe enough to put their money down, because when you get enough of those people, then other people get excited. So I think that was for us, our route to success. But you also have to run it as a marketing campaign, bi-weekly newsletters, social media, email campaigns, know what your database is of your customers, of your supporters, and you've got to run it as a marketing campaign end to end. Because it's amazing. Our first blogs that we did about it were, what is equity crowdfunding? Because actually, most people still don't know. And I was at a session yesterday on Series A funding. And what was for me really interesting is there are 650,000 businesses a year set up in the UK. That's a big number. It's only just over 4,000 that get funding.
Wow.
And it was around 500 that get Series A. So, normally you go for a seed round and then you go for a Series A round. So it just brought home to me, because I've been living in this world for the last couple of years, it seems like a normal thing to do because you talk to a lot of other people who are doing it. The reality is this stuff is still new, and most people you talk to will never have invested in a crowdfunded business before, or will never have, even thought about owning a part of a business of someone they know. So keep in mind that everybody else has to go on that journey, and you're going on that journey by being here and thinking about doing it for your business. But everyone you talk to will only be at the start like, what is that? I've never heard of it before. And you've got to actually help them go through that journey as well if they're going to consider parting with their money to something that they believe in. So that's
great. That's already a lot of tips shared here. Let's look a little bit about learning lessons, mistakes, challenges, however you want to call them. Clearly, if you do nothing, you'll make no mistake and you'll learn nothing. So I'm all for mistakes. What are the typical, Chris, mistakes that people make, in your view?
So, I think, as Marilee mentioned, it's you need to be able to convince, with Seedrs, you need to be able to convince people that know your business best, know you as founders best, know your sector best, to invest first. Because even though there's a lot of investors on the platform, they are strangers to you. They've never come across you. You're up against 15, 20 other businesses fundraising at the same time. Why are they going to go for your one? So I think people that don't do enough work before a crowdfunding campaign, as Marilee said again, it's a 5-month process, but in reality, your campaign's only really up for 30 to 60 days. So it is about the work that goes in before that and talking to people in your industry, trying to get them engaged with your business. And people that just leave way too much up to chance. They go, I'm going to stick up this campaign, hope for the best. It doesn't quite work like that. You need to create your own luck, because if you get the early engagement, it creates validation to the people that have never met you. It gets you at the top of the platform because it is based on a trending algorithm of popularity. Who's got the most recent investment in the last 24 hours? If you can create that luck, you get more click through, you get more engagement, and then you're going to get more investment. I also think. Sometimes as well with the team side of things, I think our investors are a little bit reluctant to go for one-person teams. They do like to see that you aren't the expert in every different area. So either you've got a board of advisors, or you have co-founders. One's a technical person, one's a marketeer, one's a CEO. So building out that team first off is quite important. And people that don't do that try and go and fund on our platform with just a solo founder. They do struggle a little bit more.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Ian, what are the no-nos for you? Do people come to you and say, will you invest in my business? And is that okay? Or what are the things that you shouldn't do?
Well, if you attend an event like this, then people do come to you, yeah. I think that, first of all, when looking at a business plan, quite often the growth multiples in years 2, 3, and 4 have no sort of validation to them. And when you actually sit down and sort of interrogate the numbers and ask the person why the business is going to grow by tenfold in year 2 or year 3, there's no substantiating evidence behind that, and that's a big weakness. And really, those numbers are just fictitious. I think what's really important is to be able to demonstrate success, or demonstrate, if I invest £100, I'll get 150 back. Well, prove it. Okay, well, here we go. We tried a campaign, we spent this money, and this is how much revenue we got. So then, you've actually got some factual evidence. But too many business plans come with no verification behind the numbers. And that could be a frustration. I think for me personally, I like to invest in someone who's got a track record in delivery, and that might not be, they may not have had their own business before. That's understandable, but someone that's delivered in a corporate environment, or has worked for someone else and been successful in a certain field, and they've got a uniqueness about them. That's very important.
Okay, thank you. Ladies, what about your lessons? I mean, have you had no's? What have you learned from them? Or, what are the things that you've thought on reflection, I should have never done that? Or I should have never gone that way, approached the whole thing that way?
I mean, I guess the question about no's, it's kind of funny because, as we approached our latest round, and, we're in a round at the moment, so we're out seeking funding and talking to different people. I think the number one thing when you're doing crowdfunding, obviously you're talking to people and then you're going out to the crowd. As soon as you're starting to talk to angels, VCs, and the sort of more institutional investors, it's as much about doing your research up front as it is about seeking the funding. Because, I think as Chris mentioned, you've got to think about who are these investors and what role are they going to play in your business. So, if I think about where we are now, we've got 20 direct investors, one of which is Cedars. And within Cedars, we've got about 350. So that's a kind of nominee structure. And so, as soon as you take on those investors, you've got to be committed to communicating to them. And so, we've got our regular newsletters to always talk about what's going on in the business. And then we also have quarterly investor updates and these sorts of things. I think what was surprising to me is when we started talking to our current investors about a second round, was actually the feedback we got from some who invest in multiple businesses saying, oh, wow, you've been amazing at how you've communicated with us. And, we're really interested in investing. And I guess for me, that was a surprise because, I mean, that's kind of the minimum that you might do, but then you realize actually not all businesses do that. So I think for me, that learning about how important that was really critical. But I think the second thing is now as we start talking to investors, we're talking to a lot of different investors, some that want to invest in pure technologies and they want the next unicorn, others who are in the property sector, which is really interesting because property is an element of what we do, and some others who are in travel and tourism and hospitality. And no matter who you're talking to, they're looking at it from a completely different perspective of what their expectations are. And I think for me, the biggest challenge is, on the one hand, you want to be positive and you want them to get excited about your business, but you also don't want to oversell them or give them wrong expectations, because that's only creating a nightmare for yourself 6 months or 12 months down the road if you're not meeting the targets that you promised you were going to achieve. So and often that might mean that they say, oh, well, you're not going to have this flying trajectory over the next 2 years, and therefore that's not the kind of business we want to invest in. And I think it's about having that confidence to walk away and say, well, I'm not sure that investment money would be the right thing for the business because our expectations are completely misaligned about where we want to get to and what we want to achieve. So I think that's hard because on the one hand, you're looking for the investment. On the other hand, you want to make sure you get the right investors who are going to contribute in the right way and be a part of your business, because it's a long-term partnership. And, it's kind of like dating. You don't want to make the wrong choice because it'll probably be pretty painful later on.
What she said. There's a lot of applying of rigor. There's applying of rigor to your business plan. There's applying of rigor to your financials. But it's also really important, and this is the stage I'm at, I'm discovering this as I go, that you're talking to the right people, that you're doing your homework and you're not seeking money, financing, investment from organizations and investors that will apply other expectations on your model that you never intended there. So that goes to my other challenge, which was I personally don't come out of a business background. I'm an educator. I'm coming to this somewhat accidentally. And so for a good long while, I kept looking to others for the magic bullet, like tell me what I should do. Tell me, what you think. And at the end of the day, I'm now realizing that I do know best and that they don't necessarily know best. And I spent perhaps way too much time getting advice instead of moving forward that wasn't really right or wasn't really applicable. So the advice off the back of that challenge is, if you believe in your idea and apply your...
Go for it.
Go for it and apply the rigor yourself.
Yeah.
Don't expect others to do it for you.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to ask one last question, and then I'm going to open to the audience. So I did say I was going to ask about this. I speak to women all the time, entrepreneurs, startup, established one. And there is a common element in that everybody says, as a woman, I find it really hard. It's hard to approach investors because they are often male. It's hard to get the confidence to go and ask for, for the money because maybe I don't believe as much as I should. I mean, I believe in it, but I don't have the confidence of communicating my belief. So I want to know from the perspective, again, from the investors, Ian and Chris, what you think, what's your experience, and why aren't there more female investors, which is an issue out there. Maybe you'll say, no, there are loads, but perhaps not in travel. I don't know. And from Marilee and Sarah's perspective, is there any extra tip that you can give? You've been successful, you've been confident, you've communicated, you're on that journey. So any additional tip from sort of female mindset viewpoint. Ian, do you want to start on this occasion?
Interestingly, at the ITT conference earlier this year, I met a lady who runs her own private equity fund that she sort of set up herself, very successful. Actually moved to Malta now. Not necessarily a travel specialist, but just to give some examples. Myself personally, I've invested in female entrepreneurs in the past. One slightly successful, one still going. The lady sat here in the front row.
Yeah.
Gail Kenny Recruitment.
Hello, Gail.
But I think confidence, I think, is important. If you don't believe in your business, you don't believe in your business idea, the chances are the investor won't believe in it either. So I think self-confidence is an important trait. Not arrogance, but self-confidence, self-belief. I think those things are very, very important.
Chris, what's your view?
Yeah, so I think from my perspective, with Seeders, we have funded many female entrepreneurs. We've got a few female entrepreneurs that have done £1 million plus rounds. Recently had Wealthify that had an exit, female-founded company based in Wales, and I think because my role is basically I'm first point of contact with entrepreneurs, and I meet with founders every single day. And in reality, I do actually meet more male founders than female founders. So my opinion again is just confidence, coming forward, chatting to us. We're here to give us advice as much as we are. If you're not right for Seeders, we're not going to try and push you onto Seeders. So I think just chatting to more female entrepreneurs is exactly what we want to do at Seeders. So
here you have many, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. So the mentoring sessions afterwards, really keen to chat to many more. I think one point to make on the Seeders platform, when we do look at the stats, it is about 70% male investors. So it is worthwhile thinking when you are pitching your business. If it's a female focused, your customer base is female, then it is worth thinking about how do you address that to male investors and how do you get them to understand the problem. And that's really just educating them about the market because they might not have that insight. But if it's just female founding business to the travel market in general, then absolutely crowdfunding is a brilliant option.
Thank you. Ladies, Sarah, do you want to start?
Yeah, I think, as I said, this is not my first professional milieu, and I think in my journey as a female throughout life, women do tend to be overwhelmed by the imposter syndrome, perhaps more than men. Maybe I'm making a generalization there, but it is common. So surround yourself with a lot of women, like the Women in Travel Network.
Thank you. Marilee?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because I've been asked this question before, and it's a hard one to answer because I guess I spent 13 years in Shell, so a very male-dominated kind of environment. Now I'm an entrepreneur, and to be honest, I think, early days, very often you'd get asked questions like, oh, is this just a lifestyle business? And there's nothing that wound me up more because I was like, I didn't leave a successful global career in a corporate company like Shell to have a lifestyle business. I've actually left it because I've got a massive vision and something I want to achieve. And it's really interesting because the more proof points you get, the less questions you get like that. And so I think often it's just proving it, knowing your numbers, knowing your business plan. Yeah. And to be honest, whether it's a male investor or a female investor, they all ask the same questions. And they all want to know the same thing, which is, if I put my money in this, are you going to actually help to return a good return on my investment? And so I think actually sometimes it's not getting caught up about whether it's a male or a female and just thinking about doing a really good job. And the right investors aren't going to care that you're a female founder or a male founder. They're going to care if it's a business they understand, if the numbers stack up. And so I think sometimes just focusing on doing the right things actually you'll overcome that barrier anyway. So to be honest, that's the best advice I can give on that.
Okay. So trying to sort of summarize some of the points that you made and then open to the audience. Two things really resonated with me. One is communication, because you've all spoken about the importance of having ongoing communication. And I think, Marilee, you have mentioned also before, take your investors on your journey. Don't just go to them when you need the fund, make sure that they know about it and that they have an understanding of your business long before you need that money. The other thing is about confidence. And so obviously, as an entrepreneur, believe in yourself, believe in your idea, but back it up with lots of good numbers and, numbers that are understood and, have substance, have meaning, so you can explain it. So those are the key things that resonated with me. Any final tip, anything that you want to add finally to this before or do you think I've summarized sort of in terms of the key point? What else? Have I missed anything that you think matters right now?
Just get thick to rejection and just keep asking. Because, you're going to hear a lot of no's, right? And then eventually you'll get that yes you need. And just because somebody or a lot of people say no doesn't mean your idea doesn't have legs.
Hey.
And I think I'd probably say one more thing, which is if you're looking for investment, it doesn't have to be investment in terms of cash. It's not always about money. So actually getting some investment from people's time or their services, that's a great way of starting a business. It might be a marketing company that can provide you with some free marketing, or it might be a recruitment company who will help you with, discounted recruitment or free recruitment services. Those things are doing contra deals when you're a startup is a great way to get started.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I just agree. When a company comes to us and they're bootstrapped and done as much as they can without money, showing that you've got that hustle and hard work before you come and get that money, you've done everything possible, then people really, really value that. So I just think don't try and look for money too soon when the idea is only just coming to fruition. It's just get as far as you can without it, and then your business will be valued more, and they'll trust you a lot more.
I think along those lines, one thing that's actually really interesting as we go into, sort of Series A and bigger investment rounds, it almost seems like a contradiction, because actually a lot of the institutional investors want to see that the founders still own the majority of the company. So actually, if you go for funding too early, then you're going to tend to have a lower valuation because you're going to have proven less about your business. Mm-hmm. And if you then think about your long-term plans and the rounds that you might need to do in the future to get to your exit or whatever it is you're looking to achieve longer term, it makes it harder and harder to achieve that. So, I think to what Chris said, the farther you can get along with as little funding as possible, getting revenues in, we had already generated £500,000 of revenue when we went for our first major funding round, and that was just a seed round. Before we go for our pre-Series A, not even a full Series A, we're going to be having £1 million a year in sales. So that's what we've done to kind of try and get to a place where, in a way, you're not giving away your equity too cheaply. But it's not even so much that, because I want to give away equity. I want investors to come into the business, but I also want to know that there's enough investment available that each time we get to our next milestone, there's room for more investors to come on board. And so you almost need a long-term plan, and you need to understand where each step of your financing fits into that. So, like any business plan, you need a marketing plan, et cetera. But if you want to have investment, then you probably want to have a plan for what that's going to look like as well, and where that fits into the sort of, the 5-year journey that your business might go on. So that's something just to think about.
Thank you very much. Wonderful expertise already shared. Now, I assume there will be questions from the audience. So can we have a hand up, whoever wants to ask questions? Here at the front, if you've got a microphone, please. Right here, right at the front for the first question. Tell us who you are and what you do, if you don't mind.
Hello, everybody. I'm Shabnam from Iran. I have a travel agency. My question is from Ian, if the pronunciation is correct.
Ian is correct.
If I didn't mistake, you told you did investment in Women Entrepreneurs Association, or you did help for women entrepreneurs companies. And if you do help for women entrepreneur, why you do help for women entrepreneur? And my other question is, as an investor, for example, your company, your bank, do help for entrepreneurs just inside UK or also outside UK, because it's an international conference and we are talking about investment and funding, and now one of the great problem in all over the world is economic crisis, and especially funding and investment. As I compare this world travel market from last year, I see they cut many things. They cut many things. Yes. Thank you.
So taking the second question first, so I think in terms of if it's a professional investment, so a private equity company, I think a lot of travel businesses are international, and most travel businesses looking for investment quite often it's because they want to get into new international markets. So I think in terms of the international piece, that's quite normal for a private equity business to invest in a company which is not necessarily based in the UK. I think if you're talking about startup funding and angel investors, if they want to take advantage of the government SEIS scheme, and then they're going to be looking, if they're based in the UK, if they're domiciled in the UK, they're going to be looking to make investments in UK companies in order to get that tax relief. So I think it kind of depends on what you're talking about. And I do apologise, I didn't quite understand the first question.
So as I understood it, was it about investing particularly in female entrepreneurs? If you make, when you look at a proposal, do you think female entrepreneurs, is there anything that do you look at, I guess, whether it's a female or male entrepreneurs, or do you just think it's a business, does this business make sense or not?
It's all about the business, it's about the idea, it's about the track record of the person that is putting it in front of me. I mean, their gender has no relevance.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, behind, would you mind passing? Thank you.
I have a question regarding financial projections. So earlier, Ian, you were mentioning how one of the biggest pitfalls or downfalls of startups is that they can't really justify their financial growth trajectory. But at the same time, for most people that are looking for seed funding, we're kind of shooting in the dark, right? We have a general idea of how big the market is, but we don't really know what percentage of share you're going to get, or even like the operational costs. You're really kind of just guessing, right? So I guess my question is, how much time should people spend on on a detailed P&L very early on, like before the seed funding, before you even have, for example, like a proper finance team, or go.
Yeah, I think bringing back to the point that Mary made about her business, which was that they didn't go for funding straight away. So it was really about getting the business started and getting some traction. And I think I wouldn't worry about your P&L or necessarily your business plan from day one. It's about demonstrating that you can, whatever your idea is, that it's going to work in the marketplace. I would focus on that for the first 6 months. I think there's no point in writing a business plan if you've got no experience, if you haven't, and unless you work for a company that operates in the market where your business is going to start, and you know that market and you and there's some proven numbers that you can provide, you need to get something going. And it goes back to the point that I said earlier, which is in startup, it depends what the business is, but if it's a B2B business, for example, it's a lot easier to start without funding than a B2C business. Because a B2C business is going to need funding for advertising. Marketing is very expensive. But if you have a B2B business, that will rely upon your ability as an individual to sell to other companies. And you can start a B2B business with relatively little cash. So my advice to you would be try and prove your model and try and get somewhere without the cash to start with. Use your friends, use your family, use your network.
Okay. Anybody else wants to add?
I think it's. I mean, a lot of industries are changing so quickly. I mean, our founder Jeff Lynn is, he said, maybe perhaps do a 3-year projection, but people need to take it with a pinch of salt because even Cedars projections still, we've been around 5 years now, and we still can't get it right. So I think often showing once you have got the business, past that first year, then you need to have 3 years in place. But just as long as you can give a clear understanding of how you've made that working, so investors can understand how you've got there, rather than just completely plucking it out of thin air.
Thank you. Anything else you want to add? Thank you. Yeah. Question behind you, if you can pass the mic. Yeah. Can you just introduce yourself?
Hi, my name's Yvette. I'm from Book My Own Travel. We are in Australia, and Chris, I went on Cedars, and you're not in Australia. Is there any chance of that happening soon?
Yes, I mean, I guess again, because we're still in early stages of our journey, we have been focusing on Europe. So we've just opened office in Berlin and Amsterdam, and obviously still there's so much to do here in the UK. So it's definitely in our long-term goals, and hopefully over the next couple of years. But right at this moment, it's not. It's kind of just because of the jurisdictions of all the different areas. It is quite difficult to work with this Australian business at the moment. But hopefully, we should stay in touch. Yeah.
Are there competitors in Australia that you can mention?
There's definitely one in New Zealand. Not too sure about Australia though.
No, there's nothing.
Well, there is, but very small.
Yeah.
Very small.
Yeah.
Thank you. Questions? Over there. You can pass it along. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ganiat. I'm from Modern Travels and Tours. I'm from Nigeria. What I would like to know, I know this is more about financial funding, but just like one of the speakers said, investment is not just about funding. Sometimes you need the expertise. And I want to know, as she also said, it's not just enough to have an idea. You have to be able to work on that. And so can you get, support when you have an idea and you don't really know how to go about executing it, turning it into a proper business? Can you get assistance, expertise in how to go about, having a business plan, setting up the business, That's what I would like to know.
Well, do you mind if I answer this first? Because I have direct experience in the sense that Women in Travel as a social enterprise at the moment is myself. And the first thing I did, because I was very conscious of being one, although with many years in business, I set up an advisory board. And so what I did is I've got 4 fantastic people who have given me their time, their expertise in marketing, in PR, in finance, and they are keeping me on my toes all the time, and rightly so. So I think you have to look at your network and look at who are the people that you trust and look up to, and then think, can I get these people to give me some support, whether it's mentoring, whether it's an advisory board. You probably have a network of people that will have some expertise, and that's how I've gone about it, which is informal. It's not a formal way. I don't know if there are other ways.
I think I can only really speak for the UK, but, you know, there are organizations like Enterprise Nation. I think it costs like £30 to join, and they've got all kinds of free sessions that you can go and learn about different topics and that can help you out. And also, it's always good to go out and network with other people who are also founding companies, because, you know, in the entrepreneurial world, you don't have colleagues in the same way that you might in a company. And so my colleagues, as I see it, are other founders who are having exactly the same challenges, who are learning about the same things. And the more that you can work with each other and share what you're learning and help each other through different things, the better. I mean, there's a guy who founded a company not dissimilar called Hire Car. And, you know, they do a similar sort of thing to us, but in the car space. And, you know, they're sometimes ahead of us on certain things and sometimes behind us in others. So we're both able to help each other, share experiences, and sometimes just, you know, throw something over the fence and go, oh, I already solved that problem for us. Here you go. And then 3 months later, they're doing the same back for you. So find some colleagues, find your support networks, because there are lots of other people struggling with exactly the same things. And if you build those relationships and help each other, everyone's going to get better and everyone's going to do better.
Which is why the mentoring and even the peer mentoring, which is what we are about to start, is so important, because people learn from each other all the time. Any other view on this in terms of support?
But there's, in the UK, certainly in the UK, there's a lot of labs. I mean, I noticed that one of your sponsors was Travel Tech Lab. So, you know, they will help you with things like that, as Google Labs. So there's a lot of opportunities there, and I think also, you know, network within your industry that you work in. Certainly, when I was starting up, you know, there were people you would go to for advice, and I'd also say, you know, have more than one advisor, because what someone tells you, someone else will have a different view. So you know, ultimately, it's down to you and the decisions that you make about your business, and it's good to have perhaps, you know, 3 or 4 advisors, and then you take a view on all the different views. You formulate your own decision.
Absolutely. Okay. One last question. Yes. Get in there. Can we have the microphone? Sorry. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Thank you very much. First of all, Alexandra, what a great initiative, Women in Travel.
Thank you.
I had no idea about it. We have a female event planners group on Facebook. We'd love to connect you. My question is for everybody, really. I have a venue sourcing agency that I've bootstrapped and run for the past 2 years, and now I've built a group of fantastic people, and we have a new tech platform within the MICE industry, which is meetings, incentives, conferences, and events. And when I was pitching to different investors and pitch competitions, I found it really, really hard to explain the MICE industry. Obviously, you only have that much time during the pitch deck. What key information is important, in your view, to give for someone who might not be involved in a specific industry like that, or a niche industry, but you find absolutely that I have to give? Is it the numbers? Is it the profits?
What is it?
What's
a very good
key?
question.
Yeah,
Thank
you very much.
Question. So what's the essence? Pitch down to the essential.
I think the really important thing is growth potential. So people, an investor will want to know the industry or sector that you're in pitching. Is it one that's growing? Is it one that's going to grow fast? That's important. And the second key point is, what's your edge? What's different about the product or the service that you're selling? What makes you unique? So it's those 2 things for me, is growth and uniqueness of your product.
Even before that, what is the problem that you're trying to solve? And be able to communicate that clear as the blue sky. Why are you doing that? And how do you stand out from the rest, if there are others? What are you going to accomplish that nobody else has before you? You know,
in that industry,
in your industry, and are there numbers that suggest that problem can be served?
And I think one of the things that's sometimes very helpful is actually talking to investors who already have a familiarity with your industry, because people are much more likely to invest in something when they've touched or felt it themselves and when they already have some knowledge of it, because people are not going to tend to put their money into things that are unfamiliar to them or that they wouldn't necessarily use themselves or see the need for. So it's also just thinking about, well, who are you talking to and why would this be interesting for them?
You know, when you are invited to, let's say, Web Summit or bigger events like that, and you have to pitch in front of many, many people, and they might not get the idea of your industry, that's when, I struggle. What do I give them to explain? Obviously, the problem, yes, and how big is the problem, how important is the problem, how important is our solution, but just for them to understand that the market is really, really exciting and the industry.
Well, I think you get better at it as you go, so just keep pitching. And you might not get through in the first half a dozen, but reach out to people who can mentor and practice in front of them. And the more you can practice it, the better, till you get it to a sentence, really. If you can communicate what it is you're doing in a sentence or two, just that little elevator pitch, and they go, oh, then you can give them more.
I think I chat to businesses in all different sectors, and so many sectors I don't know that much about, and the ones that do it best, the ones that literally talk to me like I'm a 5-year-old, and they just make it so simple of why this is such a big problem in my industry and how this is disrupting it so much. And if the difference is so clear, then I'm really, really engaged. Whereas if I don't quite see that, then maybe I switch off a little because I'm not an expert in that field. So just try and, I guess as everyone else said, just kind of break it down and. Yeah.
It's really good advice. Thank you.
Find those two things that are dissimilar that it's like and put them together. And then you get a mental image right away.
Okay. Sorry, we have to stop here. If you are staying for the mentoring, there are tables at the end. But before that, we've had some amazing tips from these really great panelists today. So please, let's make sure we say thank you. Thank you very much. And there should be other mentors in the audience. If you are, then